But Chris, why?
So Wolverine tickets go on sale today.
Okay.
And we're thinking, why not kick off with some ticket giveaways, and in so doing, talk about the Wolverine as well.
Well, that is a very fascinating proposition. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, throughout today, you can be part of the show. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. We are giving away tickets to see the Wolverine, along with showing some exclusive screenshots here from the movie.
Yeah, we're getting to see some new looks at some of the characters in the film. So we'll be doling those out throughout. So stay tuned for that. And we got an awesome video coming up as well.
We do an awesome video right now. We have an hour worth of Wolverine talk. But before we get into that, you might be one of these nerds at home going, I don't know who this Wolverine is. To which I say, watch this video.
The X-Men films have always drawn inspiration from the comics, but the Wolverine looks to be the closest Fox has ever come.
There'll be a video in a second. Don't worry about that. We're a little technical. We're warming up to this whole Wolverine live stream. There it is. Hold on.
But the Wolverine looks to be the closest Fox has ever come to a direct adaptation of a specific storyline. So let's take a look back at the history of Logan as it relates to the new film. Be warned though, spoilers from the comics follow. The movie is heavily inspired by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller's 1982 miniseries simply titled Wolverine. As hard as it is to imagine now, Wolverine was just an ensemble player back then. Until this story happened, that is, making his first solo adventure and helping to kickstart the massive popularity he enjoys today. The comic sees Logan traveling to Japan. There, he tries to win the heart of the fair lady Mariko. Unfortunately, that puts him at odds with Mariko's father, the ruthless Yakuza crime lord Shingen. He sees Wolverine as Gaijin, a mongrel outsider with no honor. Logan is brought down low, only to team up with the mysterious and streetwise ninja Yukio to battle Shingen, reclaim his honor, and earn the right to be with Mariko. The story was the first to explore Wolverine's strong connection to Japan and his status as a Ronin, a wandering, masterless samurai. It was also one of the first times that readers were able to peer beneath Wolverine's tough exterior and see the troubled, passionate man beneath. Unlike in the comic, Shingen appears to be an ally of Wolverine in the movie. We know that Logan saved him in World War II during an atomic blast, and Shingen wishes to repay that debt by taking away his healing factor and finally ending his torturous immortality. But while his motives appear to be benevolent, if this Shingen is anything like his comic book counterpart, he just might have more sinister motives in mind. Meanwhile, the presence of Silver Samurai and Viper in the film suggests a call out to Uncanny X-Men 172 and 173. In those issues, Wolverine's marriage to Mariko was cut short when Silver Samurai appeared to seek revenge for the death of his father. The illegitimate son of Shingen, he is an outsider in his own way. The samurai initially viewed Logan as an obstacle to claiming his father's throne as a crime lord. However, in the later years, both men came to respect each other as honorable warriors. Silver Samurai's mutant power allows him to charge his sword, making it strong enough to withstand even Wolverine's claws. In this movie, though, it looks like he'll be donning a giant armored suit. That could work too. Viper, meanwhile, has also battled Logan many other times over the years. A terrorist leader, expert in hand-to-hand combat, and specialist with deadly poisons, she's also a member of the villainous organization Hydra. That's put her up against the likes of Nick Fury and Captain America too. But since Fox doesn't hold the rights to those characters, she'll be flying solo in this film. Another aspect of the Wolverine explores what happens when Logan loses his healing factor, making him a mere mortal. We've seen this type of thing in the comics too, like during the 1993 X-Men crossover Fatal Attractions, which did not involve Glenn Close. Instead, after having the adamantium on his bones violently ripped out by Magneto, Wolverine's healing factor shorted out, giving a newfound sense of danger to each and every fight. And then there's Jean Grey, who we've glimpsed in the trailers for the new movie. The thing is, the Wolverine takes place after X-Men The Last Stand, where Jean died, at Logan's hand no less. How she might be back in dream form or otherwise remains a mystery as of now. But Hugh Jackman has said that Jean represents one of the most important relationships in Logan's life. And let's not forget, she's also the Phoenix who has been resurrected multiple times. Whatever the case, it's clear that the movie is closely adhering to some of the character's greatest comic book storylines. As for how this will all play out on the big screen, we'll know soon enough when The Wolverine hits in July.
Well, the guy who did the VO for that sounds like a huge nerd. Jim, you've
Yes.
gotten to see some of
Hi,
this there
Greg.
Wolverine. You saw the first half of this movie.
I saw about 20 minutes.
So it's not 40 minutes long. That's the point.
Yeah, no. They're going for the full 2 hours. I
Okay,
think, on this
good.
one. I saw at a recent Edibay visit, they showed us a good chunk of the first act, and then they also showed us some of that bullet train sequence that we saw in the reel just now and in the trailers. I reread the graphic novel recently, and it does stay to some of the larger plot points of that comic. It opens up in the woods with the grizzly bear, like it is in the comics. They tweak it a little bit, but it's in plot it's similar, but thematically it's different than the comics. They explore some new things that the comic didn't.
And I actually think that in the comic itself, it looks, you have these relationships with the two women, which we'll get into, and in the movie, it looks like they're playing that up much more. Like the comics are kind of bare bones.
Yeah, that was one of the things that surprised me rereading the comic and it's one I grew up reading and I loved, but was sort of how two-dimensional the female characters were. And from what I've seen of the movie, and my hope for it is that the characters of Yukio and Mariko will be more substantial and fleshed out than they were in the comics, and it's certainly they're going to play them a little differently. At least Yukio, she's not going to be quite as like Xenia Onatopp from GoldenEye. She's going to be a little more restrained, I think.
It's kind of a horny devil in the
She really is.
And now they're going to round that out a little bit more than just being pure raw passion.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. That's right.
Which I could go for, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here for an hour of full-fledged passion, and we want you to be a part of it. Tweet at IGN, #Wolverinetics, because if your question gets picked, we're going to read a whole bunch of questions, but if it gets picked for being a really good one, you will win tickets to the Wolverine. We have our first question here. Are you ready for it? It
Yes.
comes from @thestarchild87. He or she asks, do you know if this movie will have any impact on future X-Men/Marvel movies?
Well, we know that Hugh Jackman is reprising the role of Wolverine for X-Men Days of Future Past. The director has been pretty upfront about the fact that this is a standalone film. This isn't going to be necessarily dependent on any grand vision that they have for the future of that franchise. That being said, there's still room for speculation there about where this might go, how it could pay off in future films, and that there's also going to be, I think, probably some setup for future Wolverine films. Whether or not it's going to play into the larger X-Men universe, I think depends on Viper and Silver Samurai and what happens there, and that giant Silver Samurai suit at the end.
Yeah.
Like, is that a proto-Sentinel? We know the Sentinels are going to be in X-Men Days of Future Past. I don't know.
I hope and imagine it will in some way, right? Marvel's been really good, and even before they got to the whole Avengers thing, right, that the X-Men movies did have this timeline and did have all this stuff happening. So even when they went back and did X-Men Origins and when they went back and did First Class, that was still tying into what had already come before.
Right. Well, we're certainly eager to see what, if anything, this movie might sort of generate for future X-Men movies.
The nice thing, the beautiful thing about this whole thing is that the X-Men world, the mutant world, all belongs to Fox, and it's a very, very big, place to play in. So, it can set up all kinds of characters. And who knows? We haven't seen enough of this one to know if Silver Samurai is going to be a huge factor going forward. But I'm stoked that it could build and build.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's like you said, it's a big sandbox. There's a lot of room in there that you could still explore. There are a lot of X-Men universe characters that they haven't even gotten to yet. Like Wolverine's got a son in the comics, Dakin. I mean, you could bring him in. At some future sequel, we'll see.
Well, I mean, we're talking about all this stuff now, future sequels, where it's gone, the crazy-ass timeline. The real thing is that when X-Men first came out, right, nobody knew what that was going to be. When the first X film came around, right, there's this guy, his name's Hugh Jackman, and he's going to be Wolverine. You look at this guy, and you're like, oh, a lot of Broadway experience, and he knows how to sing, and this is weird. Like, here we are, decades later, and it's a juggernaut, right? And I can't believe it. And I think a big part of it's because of Hugh Jackman. Maybe,
Yeah.
I just love the guy too much.
Well, he made the X-Men, and the X-Men made his career as well.
Right.
Like one fed into the other. So, I mean, I can't imagine anybody else filling that role, but other people were going to, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, they had talked to Russell Crowe once upon a time. They approached him, and the report is that Russell Crowe actually suggested Hugh Jackman to Bryan Singer, but they had cast Dougray Scott, who at that time people only knew as the Prince Charming character in Ever After. So of course the fanboy,
we did,
the fanboy outrage over casting him in the role, and then he couldn't end up doing it because Mission Impossible 2, where he was playing the villain, was running over, yada yada yada. Flash forward, they come out the same summer, Mission Impossible 2 in X-Men, and everyone's like, oh, Dougray Scott's so cool in that. I guess he would have been a good Wolverine.
This could have worked out really well for him.
Yeah,
but instead, like you said, made Hugh Jackman's career, right? Like put him on the map in a way I don't think anyone was expecting.
It would have been weird, like in retrospect, like seeing how Russell Crowe's career has developed, to see Russell Crowe be the Wolverine. It's just, it's so Hugh Jackman now, like forever. Right. He's going to be, if ever a situation years in the future, there's no Hugh Jackman anymore. It's like, who plays that role now after that?
Well, it's the same as with on the Marvel side with Downey and Iron Man. I mean, he's made it such his own that it's going to be very difficult I feel like, for others to step in and sort of inherit that mantle, but it'll happen someday.
I know, and that's what's crazy to think about, right? Like when you talk about Downey Jr. over there and he's doing all his stuff, he's getting older, he's looking a little older, you get it. Hugh Jackman looks younger every movie in the veins in this guy's arm. Holy cow, what is he doing?
I'm going to switch to only eating chicken cutlets myself. Yeah. I think that's what happens. I think there's maybe more involved to it, but like I'm going all chicken cutlets.
Chicken cutlets and show tunes. I think that's
show tunes.
I'm going to fry my chicken cutlets. I think it'll have the same effect. We have our first winner, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. You get to win some Wolverine tickets. No, chicken cutlet dinner. Our winner is Nova_TSB. He says, do you think the cure is still in effect here from The Last Stand? Remember, that was a big part of The Last Stand, right? That mutants could no longer be mutants if they didn't want to be.
Right. That's an interesting question. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think part of the immortality factor of the movie, which is how it differs from the comic too, is that the comic didn't deal with Wolverine being angst-ridden over essentially living forever and seeing everyone he loves die. He has to lose his power somehow in this movie, because we do see that he does lose his healing factor to some degree. Could that be tied into the cure? Possibly. I'm not sure. That's a very good question. I'll know more when I see the movie soon.
Well, that's why we're all speculating here. Spitballing, Chris. That's what we do.
Speculation.
Congratulations on winning some tickets. You'll know soon, Mr. Nova. Since we've done our first winner, that means we can show our first screenshot here. Yeah, we have some exclusive screenshots here from the Wolverine. Bam!
Bam!
That's
Look
Wolverine.
At the eyes on this guy!
And that's Yukio. Now, in the comics, she is a much kind of, I don't know, crazier kind of character.
Yeah, she's definitely a wild one in the comics, and it's interesting because the relationship in the comic book comes out of it's kind of a relationship of deceit. It's an older work, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much. But
right.
Trust me, I've walked down this path. People will be upset for you spoiling, but we've given you all. You're watching a Wolverine live stream where we talk about the character.
But I feel like in the comic she's a little bit older and she has a bit of a different look to her. In this, it seems like she's played a little bit less devious.
And she also has this sort of instant crazy attraction to Wolverine, which from the footage that I saw didn't seem to necessarily be the case.
But you could understand it if she did. I mean, like chicken cutlets.
Come on, man.
I mean, look at this guy.
But there's also, with Yukio, she is there. She's sent to bring him to Japan. Part of the comics, that limited series, was that Wolverine had been to Japan before. He knew the Japanese language. He knew Mariko, everything. None of that is in the movie. He is a complete outsider. He doesn't speak Japanese. He's the proverbial fish out of water. And so he is going to be sort of the eyes of the audience, and she is sort of his guide into this world. And that's a very different take, because the comic book did establish that Wolverine at least had some understanding of Japanese culture and the idea of Ronin and samurai and all that, and that's going to be completely new for him in this movie.
Do you know why they just decided to make that change?
They wanted to make him as out of his element as possible. In this movie, it starts after X-Men: The Last Stand, so he's lost everyone that he loves, and that's the emotional point that he's coming from in this one. You know, Jean Grey is dead. Professor X is dead. He's no longer with the X-Men. He's basically living like a mountain man out there in the wilderness. And so by stripping him of everything and just throwing him overseas, that makes him that much more vulnerable character.
Sure.
He doesn't know anything that people are saying around him, and my understanding from talking to the director is they weren't going to subtitle it either. So American audiences will be sort of, unless you know Japanese,
right,
you're going to be as lost as Wolverine is in these scenes.
Fascinating.
And dependent on Yukio to help you out.
Now, a little bit in the trailer we saw here, and you talked about it there, right, that he's this mountain man, he's out on his own. It sounds a lot like how his character began in the original X-Men movie.
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, he's kind of come full circle back again, to that guy that we see just that gruff loner in the bar and sort of just wandering his way through the wilderness, except this time, when it begins, he doesn't have that sort of edge that he had. He's a broken man. He is really at the bottom of the barrel when we find him. I mean, he doesn't even really shave his chin.
Oh, that's
not
the number one sign something's wrong.
Yeah, you got problems.
He let the wingtips go. He looks terrible.
Okay.
I feel like this is like that vampire story, right? Where the vampire can't die and he outlives every, buddy who's ever, he's had feelings for. And I think there's a lot more tragedy there to mine doing it this way and then, hey, let's give up the immortality, than, just the original story that this is inspired by is very cool, but it is very different in that it doesn't tackle those themes at all. And this is I feel like a lot sadder as a result, kind of.
Well, for me, that's as an audience member, somebody who loves comics and loves these films. That's really exciting to me, right? Like, I feel like the problem is when you reboot these franchises, as we see with superheroes all the time, you get the origin story again, and, okay, but you missed. It's still 2 hours, and I'm wasting a couple of those hours getting into who this guy is when I know who he is. Whereas here, we get to see everybody evolve.
Right, but it's taken several films now for us to be able to do this one and hopefully do it justice.
Sure.
Because Wolverine now is no longer a member of the team. He's literally just himself, and we've seen him grow over all these films now, from being that loner to being part of a team, and now having all that stripped away. So it's going to be interesting to see by the end of this movie, is he looking to rejoin civilization in a way, go back home and become part of that family again? I'm curious to see where his story ends here and sort of where his adventure goes from there.
Yeah, that's the most fascinating part, right? I mean, here we are watching the original X-Men trailer. What brought him together, brought him to be part of the team, not see him ripped away from it, but to know that, Last Stand is in production already, that he is in that in some sense.
Yeah, in Days of Future Past, he's going to, that's going to reboot the timeline too in a way. So we'll see where it leads us from there.
We have another question here. Remember, be part of the show. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. Maybe you could win some. Our question comes from Raz Al Dub. What do you think attracted Aronofsky to the script originally? And from what you saw, is Mangold up to the task?
Aronofsky, back in the day, was supposed to do another Frank Miller graphic novel, Ronin. Mm-hmm. And so I have a feeling it was probably part of that was part of the attraction to it. Also, he had worked with Jackman on The Fountain. And so they really wanted to get a director that Jackman knew, that they trusted, and was a strong filmmaker. And ended up going with James Mangold, who worked with Jackman on Kate and Leopold.
Oh yeah,
your favorite.
I believe
your
favorite.
I prepped a trailer for Kate and Leopold. They will run it as we speak with Kate and Leopold. Just a dynamite film about a time traveler coming back, falling in love with his granddaughter.
It's good stuff.
It's
What's
awesome.
Not to like.
It's a tale that doesn't get old. But
giving.
one of those movies he could only get after doing so many X-Men breakthrough fit.
Mangold also directed 310 to Yuma, which is a great Western and action movie. So he is. He's a good sort of journeyman filmmaker who can dabble in different genres. He's a nice guy, too. I've got to meet him a few times. I definitely get the sense from him that he is passionately attracted to the story of a man who is dealing with the curse of immortality, like we were talking about, and that to him is the big draw. Is this guy who could live forever and just wants to give it all up because he's tired of hurting.
That's fascinating. That's one of the big parts.
Turning into a kind of a downer for a lot of people.
I think for a lot of people out there, I mean, if you just watch the trailers, I don't know how much you get out of that, right? I mean, I'm tired, I want to be hurt or whatever. And he starts bleeding, but like to hear about it and just listen to it, it does sound super fascinating, right? Because they are doing something. It feels weird to say, but we've grown with him, right? We talk about X-Men and X2. X2 is this movie where he, all of a sudden cared about those people, right? He was there to protect the kids when all hell broke loose. He was there to, X2 is such a fantastic film.
Yeah. I feel like X2 is great because it actually kind of got that father figure thing right that exists throughout the comics, where he's kind of taking some of these younger mutants and shepherding and protecting them, really.
Yeah.
And it comes to pay off. Like, he gets saved by some of those people he was saving earlier, like in through the course of those movies. And so, like, that's a key element of the Wolverine character. Even though he comes across as this loner at first, when he finally gets, needs people and they mean something to him, then he puts his all into that. And I think that's really, that's a really important element of his character
He's
as
like
well.
a great family dog. He really is.
A great family dog. I don't know how much he would want to be compared to that. But no, I think that's, I don't know, it's one of those classic cliches when people always talk about him being that loner and that outsider guy. But he wants to be with people. He wants to be, I think, have that community and that, not necessarily friendship, because he's like got all that animal stuff. He wants that bond. The Wolverine kind of bond or whatever to get out there. But that's what works so well for the character, I think, in a lot of ways. So, getting back to the actual movie. The new movie.
Yes.
The Wolverine.
The Wolf.
The Wolverine.
Yes, like The Dark Knight.
Like The Dark Knight. Remember, tweet at IGN, #Wolverinetics. You could have your chance at winning some tickets here. When's it come out? We haven't done any of the basic facts here. When's
July
it come
26th.
Out? July 26th.
I believe July 25th in some international markets, but domestically July 26th. And it's again, director James Mangold. Famke Janssen, who played Jean Grey, is going to be back. And the scope of her role is sort of a question mark right now.
Yeah, we saw it a little bit in the recap video, right? That it looks like a dream sequence when she's in there talking, but we don't know.
She does pop up in the early Act 1 stuff that I saw.
Oh.
He does have some nightmares, and she's in there in that. But does she play a larger role? Does she, I don't know, does she come back? I don't know. That's not a spoiler. We're just speculating.
Well, no, yeah.
But she is doing the press junket for the movie, and you don't do that if you're just showing up in dream scenes.
In the video, there's that thing where we were talking about. She's the Phoenix.
Yeah.
She could come back.
She can come back whenever she wants, yeah.
So there,
He tells Phoenix what to do.
Yeah.
Nobody puts Phoenix in the corner.
Nobody puts Phoenix in a corner.
I mean, I think that in and of itself is enough evidence to be hopeful that she's going to play a bigger role in this movie.
Yeah. Now, we have another question here. We've been prepping for this one for a while, too, and we're getting our heads in the right space. This question comes from Max Workey. He says, once Jackman is ready to move on, who do you think would make a good replacement for the character if the time comes?
Ooh, Charlie Hunnam.
Okay, wow, you got
Wow,
one
did
right.
you see
You're
that?
ready to
Boom,
go.
boom.
Dang, man.
Actually, I didn't even have prepared. That was just like top of my head. That's what I thought of.
Oh, wow, okay.
Charlie Hunnam. Sons of Anarchy, by the way, if you guys don't know.
I don't know who he is.
Pacific Rim.
Which one is
Pacific Rim, yeah.
Jax. Jax
Yeah.
Teller. Oh,
Yeah.
Jax Teller would be fantastic as Wolverine.
Got
to start eating chicken
That's a
cutlets,
good
though.
question. I don't know. I'm going to say rough-hewn, Irish, English, Australian, Scottish character actor.
Okay.
I don't know. Somebody probably younger.
You really committed to
yeah,
that answer, man.
because I don't know. I think that Jackman is
So tough.
He has made it so much his own. Like I think it's probably easier to recast Batman than it would be to recast Wolverine.
Sure.
Because let's face it. I mean, when you're playing Batman, so much of it is going to be how you look in the suit. With Wolverine, it's look, it's all out there.
Yeah.
Who's going to want to commit to that diet?
No,
It's more than diet. That's right.
no, it's not just
it's
chicken
not
cutlet.
just diet.
Wake up calls and a lot of
Dang.
squats.
No, I mean that is the problem I think they face, is that he is so iconic and now so connected to that. And then how long do you let a franchise cool off, right, before you try to come back and grab it? I don't have those answers.
Well, for Spider-Man, like 2 years.
Yeah.
No, I have a feeling they'll jump into just because of rights issues and wanting to keep that character in the public consciousness, and because he is such an anchor to the Fox Marvel universe. Sort of the way Downey's Iron Man is now to the
Yeah.
Marvel proper. I don't think you can go without him for that long. You know?
Yeah, he is the key X-Men character.
Sure.
You know?
I mean,
you could have another X movie without him, but
well, they did it
would
with
you
First
want
Class.
to? You know?
Yeah,
would you want
exactly.
to?
They did it with First
That's
Class,
true.
and
actually,
that
well, I mean, he was in
commercially
it.
it did okay, but it wasn't that breakout hit. I think that's one reason why you're seeing X-Men Days of Future Past now, where they can bring in all these other characters and not have Wolverine just be the cameo like he was in First Class.
Right.
To sort of commercially anchor it to something that the public at large can recognize and has an emotional
You figure my
attachment to.
non-comic fans went and saw First Class, and their first thing they talked to me about would be like, these powers were kind of weak. Like I can sonic waves out of his chest and fly. I'm like, no, but he's really cool. And I'm trying to explain why that works so well. But they were looking for laser beams out the eyes, claws out the hands.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
they got naked Jennifer Lawrence. In
I was
blue
pretty
paint.
happy with that.
It's not all bad. Let's go.
Well, it's interesting. Like Wolverine is synonymous now with X-Men, but like back in the day when the character first came out in the comics,
Oh, sure.
X-Men existed without Wolverine. Wolverine existed without X-Men. He's always a mutant, but he actually made his appearance in Hulk, and he was kind of a secondary character.
With really short little
Yeah,
eye
he had the
thing.
little-
yeah,
the
yeah.
short little
claws, yeah.
And also, I mean,
Adorable.
it did take him, even though he was sort of the, a fan fave. It was several years actually until he really hit that sort of explosion of popularity
Right.
because of that miniseries, and it showed that there was more to this guy than just the hairy little killer with the claws. That there was a soul to him too.
Yeah. All right, so speaking of soul,
Yes.
we have a question here that hits right at the soul of the movie The Wolverine.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it came from somebody just like you. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. You could win Wolverine tickets just like the Game Boy 15 does. He says, what does this movie, The Wolverine, need to do to be successful? Is it as simple as just opening? It's got Hugh Jackman.
Maybe. I think it just needs to sort of like harness the spirit of the comic that inspired it,
Right.
and not stray too far outside of that. I mean, we've talked about differences, but I think the sort of spirit of the movie and the spirit of some of these things is similar, and sort of the plot points are similar. I think as long as you're hitting some of the notes in that and not getting too crazy, I think that's what will make it successful.
I think, look, I know that X-Men Origins Wolverine is not a lot of people's favorite X-Men movie, but it did make a lot of money.
Right.
And this movie has to make as much money as that, if not more, to be considered successful. Basically, their real thing is just don't screw it up. This is their cash cow in the Fox Marvel universe. You have to keep Wolverine a viable, commercially viable franchise entity. And I think creatively they're breathing new life into it by being ballsy and doing a story like this where there's no save the world plot. It's very scaled down.
Personal.
It's a personal story, and it's pretty close to a direct adaptation of this iconic comic book storyline. Hopefully it will perform commercially and keep that going. I hope it does. I mean, I think that's why you see characters like Viper kind of played up more in Silver Samurai, that there are comic booky elements. It's not lost in translation with claws.
Because Silver Samurai looks badass. Let's
Yeah,
not-
yeah.
We should look at another picture.
Yeah, oh, it's time. Another exclusive
It
pick.
is
Let's see
time.
what we got.
We should do it.
Who do we have here?
That's Mariko, who is now in the comic. She and Wolverine were past lovers, and he's come back to Japan to win her back, but he has to prove his honor and all that. In the movie, he's not, to my knowledge, he doesn't know her since he's never been to Japan.
Okay.
And so this is going to be a whole new experience for him.
So you're going to get a sweet montage.
Yeah.
Them holding hands and running through the rain.
Wait, that's not a sweet montage. I mean, I guess it's sweet, but not like sweet.
But they are going to have that sort of bonding experience. I believe that you see some of it in the trailer where he rescues her from a Yakuza attack. And so they're going to have a little time together there to get to know each other.
Well, there you go. Congratulations on winning your tickets. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a shot at free tickets, and of course you'll see more exclusive screens, keep watching for the screens, tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverine Tickets to be part of the show. I'm I'm very optimistic about this one.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
thought
me too.
I thought the problem I think most people had with Origins, right, the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, was just that there was so much going on. That we were getting around so much. It was just crazy. And so when we're talking about this and we're calling it a personal story, and we can already see these characters that we know he has these relationships with and these ties to, that for me grounds it and makes me super stoked about it.
It's like, I don't feel like we've seen, since superhero movies came back like hardcore with X-Men,
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen a movie that is this focused and so personal.
Yeah.
You know, it's on a much smaller scale. You have, you know, Silver Samurai and Viper and characters like that, but it's not like they're fighting Galactus or something. It's like you're fighting in a smaller scale, and I think that works for this, and especially when it's a story about a lone man against his own mortality.
Sure. And see, that's such a weird thing, right? He's worried about his mortality. He wants to die. Like, that's the driving force here. He wants that ability to move on since he's seen everybody he knows and loves go.
Right. And Lord Shingen, who he saves in World War II, you know, he seems benevolent, you know, which is very different from the comic book character, but you know, there's his son comes into play as well in the story. So perhaps they've kind of split that character from the comic into two. We'll see.
Interesting.
And then there's also Harada, Silver Samurai, who in the comic is the illegitimate son of Shingen.
You know,
And
like
so-
comics, and
Yeah.
you know.
All right, now, we're talking a lot about this Wolverine movie. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. However, we're dropping names not everybody understands. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics to be part of the show. Just like Yar World did, he or she says, I'm not familiar with Viper's powers. Why the need to pull off her face?
That's new. I mean, that's not in the,
Why the need to pull up her
Why
face?
the need to pull off face?
that's a very good question. And my understanding of that character is that she doesn't have those powers in the comics. She's just kind of a badass in the comics. Also, the forked tongue.
Yeah.
I believe that's new as well. I don't recall.
We're
that
really
from
committing
all
to the
my
Viper
years
part.
of-
Yeah.
And I think they also want to show that, look, there is a comic booky element to this. You know, that you're going to have some sense of a superhero movie here as well. Because I do think when you go to see the movie, a lot of it is going to probably be a lot more grounded than people are expecting. You know.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there and,
Do it.
and answer this question.
Throw a high one, Chris.
She's a frickin' snake, so she's going to take her
Viper.
skin off. You know?
Shedding skin.
Okay.
So maybe it's the
A
whole snake
reptilian
element.
explanation.
I like that. I like where you're going. You're getting real comic booky with it.
Well-
That's what I like to hear. Now, we've been talking about what the Wolverine needs to do to be successful.
Yeah.
The question now is, let's say it hits. Darren Bradley tweets at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics, and says, if the movie does well, do you think we'll see more solo X movies like the proposed Magneto one? That was the thing, correct me if I'm wrong, X-Men Origins Wolverine was
Yeah.
originally the idea that there would be more X-Men Origins.
They were developing a Magneto movie for a while, and they basically took that and parlayed it into X-Men First Class.
Gotcha.
Solo X-Men movies, I don't know. I mean, they were kicking around Gambit for a long time, but I don't see that really happening just yet. I think it depends on what, if any, sort of breakout characters there might be from X-Men Days of Future Past. But for now, I have a feeling you'll either see just more X-Men team movies or just more Wolverine movies.
Do you want to hear my pitch that I've been carrying around forever?
Man,
I'm
Chris
ready.
is just a treasure trove of
I'm ready to
over here.
unleash it on the world. Dazzler.
All right, good.
Okay.
What?
Dazzler. Listen, hear me out. Hear me
All
out.
right.
Dazzler developed as an ABC Family show.
Okay.
With an actual starlet who you
Tonight,
take
after Pretty Little Liars.
exactly who you take to actual concerts and have her perform around the country as Dazzler, and then have her in her own Dazzler TV show. What's up now?
Would it,
Still
would it
didn't
be
sound
like,
good.
Would it be like
Come
a faux reality TV
No.
series? No?
See, Greg shot my idea down. there.
boo.
Now I feel bashful about it.
No, it's you know.
You're not an ABC Family.
You took a
exec,
shot.
so-
You took a shot. That's what
And I
matters. You know, you miss 100% of the ones you don't take, Chris. So you got to get out there and try some stuff. We have another winner already, ladies and gentlemen. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. You win tickets to see the Wolverine. Even if you don't win the tickets, you get to see an exclusive screen from the movie. This one comes from Max Workey. Max says, some say a Wolverine film should be rated R. I disagree, but do you think we'll be seeing more violence this time around? You've seen 20 minutes of it.
It's going to be, you know what, they have to play within certain parameters. They need this thing to be able to play so that, 13-year-olds can go see it. I don't think you're going to see that R-rated Wolverine movie anytime soon. But perhaps you'll get the way Dark Knight really pushed the boundary of a PG-13 rating, implied violence. The footage that I saw, it didn't look any more, brutal or violent than any of the past Wolverine screen appearances.
Interesting.
I think they're, they don't want to lose people in a movie like this by pushing it too far and not having certain segments of the audience be able to come in and see it.
I'll put this forward.
Here comes another one.
No, I'm just saying. In the comics, you don't see him really tearing things to shreds either, like really gory violence. So I think it's actually in keeping with about the level of violence in the comics. You might see something fall off, but you're not going to see blood spraying and big slashes. He is a very violent character when cornered. There's a berserker barrage and all that. But I feel like the comics set the tone for it, and they're not going to go much past that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, too. There was a whole hullabaloo leading into this movie.
Hullabaloo.
That this is the first time we ever saw blood on his claws. Correct? Wasn't that a big deal in one of the screenshots? I thought that came out early on in one of the trailers. There was blood on it. We never seen it because
veritable brouhaha.
Ah. Everybody dust off your 1920s dictionary. We're going old school with this one. Yeah, for me personally, I think that Marvel does a great job.
Don't challenge me to a Donnybrook.
Marvel puts their properties everywhere and lets people take them in different directions. And I think a good recent example, is the Deadpool game that just came out, which has Deadpool cursing. He's not bleeped. There is an insane amount of violence and swordplay and stuff like that. And then it makes me think back to X-Men Origins Wolverine, the video game, which was the best Wolverine game ever because it was a solo Wolverine game. And his arms are getting blown apart, and he was the animating skeleton walking around. I was like, yes, give me that.
I actually like the X2 Wolverine game, too. It had its problems, but I thought that was also pretty good.
Okay. It wasn't as good as Origins because I just said that was the best.
No, I know.
and now here's a pro tip I saw at E3, everybody. Lego Marvel Superheroes is coming out,
Yeah.
In that, they have a little Wolverine, and if he gets burned, he'll just walk around as an animatium skeleton. So
That's
it all
amazing.
goes back, a little Lego guy.
That's awesome.
It's very good. It's very good. Now, we've been talking about these X movies. We haven't touched much on this X-Men Last Stand. Remember this one?
Yeah.
Golden Gate Bridge got moved.
Yeah.
That's right.
People started losing their powers.
I heard,
Well, I think that X-Men Days of Future Past is going to try to reset the clock on some of those characters'
Painted themselves into a corner a bit.
Well, they were selling it as kind of a final installment of that.
This is our trilogy kind of thing.
But let's face it, they did sort of drop the ball in handling some of those characters. However, I think that with Days of Future Past and sort of whatever the Wolverine will set up for some of these characters, like Jean Grey. Who knows? Maybe there'll be future X-Men movies with Patrick Stewart's Professor X back in more than just a small role. We'll see.
How crazy would it be if after Days of Future Past, we just went back to that casting and we're like, hey, here we are again. It's not. I think it's outside the realm of possibility. But
sure.
Are they gonna?
Who knows?
Will they fight ARP in the next one? I'm just wondering.
For me, that's another cool thing, like we were talking about, right? Like I remember walking out of Last Stand and being like, I don't know what I just watched it, but in the grand scheme of the timeline, and now seeing how those events have affected Wolverine in The Wolverine, that's exciting to have this kind of history that we all share. I always feel like that's what makes comics so great, right? About this continuity that we all know. Well, we all know why he's upset about Gwen Stacy because blah, blah, blah. To have that kind of lore, even around a film franchise, is cool.
You got to say it's X-Men that started that. It's X-Men that started that. It wasn't Avengers and the movies leading up to Avengers. We got what we have now due to 2000 and it's funny when you think back on those times. Like you think about this was right when I first started working at IGN, 2000. I'm old man river, but I remember the hype around that movie, and they were like, "Oh my God, leather suits! Why not yellow? Oh my God, Wolverine looks weird. I don't know if I like his hair. All this stuff." And it's like the movie came out and it was awesome, and and it set into motion this whole whole scheme of events and this whole like shared continuity, which we'd never seen in movies before. So it's a wonderful, glorious thing.
No, that's like the legacy, I think, of the X franchise. Is the fact that it did get to do all this stuff.
Think about this. In 2000, if Russell Crowe had said yes, he probably wouldn't have been able to do Gladiator. His career would be completely different.
But Hugh Jackman in Bizarro World would have done Gladiator.
Man.
Whoa.
You blew my mind. I'm trying to think of bad Russell Crowe films to throw him into. I just can't at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this show, it's all about you. We still have 20 minutes left here. We're giving away the Wolverine tickets. We're giving you exclusive screenshots. I think it's time for another one.
Yes,
We've answered some questions. Who do we got coming up in the next exclusive shot? I'm sending
Looks like us three.
Yep.
That's us.
Three schlubs.
Oh, there we go. Yukio. Now
shot.
she looks quite different in this movie. She's I believe she's younger than the character in the comic. The character in the comic seemed like a more mature woman. She's got more of that kind of punky kind of hair and stuff. And whether or not she's going to be as duplicitous as the comic book version remains to be seen. But I mean, it would lend to an interesting character arc for her in the movie.
In the comic, she's wearing this like completely black bodysuit. Here, she's wearing more like sort of traditional garb, I would say, and she's also got the.
And she hunts down, not hunts down, but locates Wolverine in that bar where he takes on the hunters, and so she has been observing Wolverine for a little while, and whether or not she's got another agenda like the comic book version of that character had, we'll see. But I would tend to think that she probably does. But from the footage that I saw, there was nothing to indicate that she's anything other than sort of his partner in this adventure and sort of the one guiding him through this, to him, what would be an exotic, strange place.
And in the comic, they become a couple insofar as people who have sex are a couple.
Sure, like you and me.
like our bond.
Super stripping. Yeah.
All right, let's go. At WhiteWolf_EM tweets at IGN #Wolverine_ticks, and he says, "A lot of my friends claim Wolverine has become milked, but I genuinely don't think that. What do you guys think?"
He's
He's
yoked.
yoked.
The nurse.
If you mean yoked, he's yoked. No, milked. He's not overused. He's not. I don't like zombies are a milk thing right now. Too many zombies thing out. Too many Wolverine things.
I still like zombies too.
I saw the Les Mis trailer. I'm like, all Hugh Jackman should be allowed to do is Wolverine. Stop doing other stuff.
Hey, he got an Oscar nomination.
Hey, I'm not knocking his performance or anything about it. I'm not one of those guys. I'm just saying, what are you doing? Who let you off the lot? Get back over there. Put the claws on.
I think, I don't think that character has been overused at all. I think it's maybe he hasn't been in as many good movies as we would like.
Sure.
And hopefully the Wolverine will turn that ship around a little bit. I still have a lot of hope that Jackman will stay with this franchise for a while. He's 44 years old. He could still do this.
He doesn't look it.
He doesn't look it.
I think
I
it just
look
comes
44
down to
years
I feel
old.
like he's drunk from the fountain.
I think it all comes down to his will to continue to work out like that all the time.
Yeah.
As you're approaching 50 years old, that's a lot to ask of anybody.
Sure, it's tough.
So he might maybe be like, okay, I'll do another Wolverine, but I'm keeping my shirt on. I want a pizza every now and then.
It's like the Thor guy was complaining about this too. I was like, you paid Greg Miller millions of dollars, and I only had the movie for like 6 weeks. I'd work out like this.
Yeah,
too.
I would.
And Chris Hemsworth, you're 27 or 28
Yeah.
or whatever. Oh, come on.
So has Hugh at all tipped his hat to how many more of these he'd want to do or anything like that?
He's
I think
hinted
he
around.
waffles,
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes he gets like really excited and he's like, I want to do Wolverine forever, and then it's like, oh my god, Like, you think about what
and
kind
does
of
an
physical
interview.
toll. I think people, like a lot of times actors are like, people are like, I could do that.
Yeah.
Like you just said.
Yeah, me.
I could do that. I don't know, man. I couldn't do that, I don't
Yeah.
think, and sustain it and want to keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a physical toll.
It's one of those arguments that I always make too when I talk to like voice actors or whatever for Up at Noon, and I'm always talking to them about like if I got to be the voice of Superman or I was Wolverine on film or whatever, I feel, and like this is the whole Robert Downey Jr. thing, right, where he keeps asking for more money and people start freaking out if they're going to keep him. I'm always like, I would work at base salary. You know what I mean? Once I made my due or whatever, it's like, all right. But yeah, if I was working out 50 hours a week or day or whatever the hell people work out, I don't know.
I mean,
work
you
out
gotta
so
realize too, like it's not just him hitting the gym. He has press obligations. He's a producer in these movies.
Sure.
So it's like it's all consuming in his life for 2 years at a time. I mean, he kind of wouldn't mind going to do other things.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
Jerk.
I know.
Keep making Wolverine films.
Just make 16 Wolverine movies a year. We'll be fine.
I mean, it's amazing that this will, he'll have played the character, I believe, 7 times now. Wow. You know, when it comes to X-Men Days of Future Past. So we have the first X-Men, X-Men 2, Last Stand, Origins, First Class cameo, the Wolverine, and then, X-Men Days of Future Past. So,
That's a hell of a career.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up there with Bond actors, you know, Connery and Roger Moore. So I feel like that's, if he did hang up the claws after Days of Future Past, that's not a bad note to go out on.
Well, I mean, we keep talking about them maybe trying to clean up continuity.
Yeah.
If they did that and kind of had to dial it back and reset the universe, then I kind of get it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll let it go with one single tear.
But here's what
Manly Wolverine tear.
Here's my hope is that this is the movie, the Wolverine movie. I mean, it's called The Wolverine, but like I kind of feel like it's the one everybody wanted. It's the story everybody wanted told. Like that is the Wolverine story that everybody comes back to, and rightfully so. It's brilliant.
Fantastic.
So if this is the one, and I kind of feel like we get this one, and it's like, okay, cool. Cool.
We delivered on the promise
we get it.
of Wolverine. But I think we make a good point. We're still talking about this, Frank Miller breakout Wolverine solo book, and the guy asking, is Wolverine being milked? No. He's been going this long. People love the character this much that you still put down an X-Men Legends game, or Marvel Heroes just came out, and everybody wants to play as Wolverine because Wolverine's awesome. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's this character
he's a legacy character now, and 20 years from now, there'll be new influential Wolverine stories that could be being turned into a movie. We'll see.
All right, so here comes an interesting question. This one wins tickets to see the Wolverine. If you want a chance at some tickets, tweet at IGN. Hashtag Wolverinetics. It comes from IROBot. It's like iRobot, but IRO is all uppercase. I don't understand Twitter handles. IRobot_Dave. Dave says, when Hugh Jackman hits a certain age, do you see a possible Old Man Logan / Wolverine based in the series? Ooh. Would that be hot if he takes a decade off of being Wolverine and then comes back?
We've long talked about this for
Bale.
Yeah,
right. Dark Knight, yeah.
Take 10 years off, come back. How badass would that be?
That'd be awesome.
If that happens, I think everybody's going to be very happy. Yeah. If that happens with Jackman, yes.
I could see 20 years from now him coming back and doing something like that.
That'd be rad.
Yeah,
God, I would love that. And the thing about Hugh Jackman, having never met the man, but reading and watching our stuff and seeing all sorts of stuff, he seems like a guy who gets what he's a part of, understands what he's been given, and loves it. Like, my favorite story was, I forget where, it might have been an IGN one about X2 back in the day, when journalists were on set watching what was happening. They had the trailer for the first time. They showed the trailer, and Hugh Jackman was there with his claws. He's like, can we see it again? You're like, yes, you are awesome. You are the kind of guy we want.
That was an IGN story, and thank you for reading the site. There
we go. Everybody.
IGN.com/movies. That's what we're on.
There you go.
I was going to just interject there. As somebody who has had the pleasure of meeting Jackman a number of times now, he's the real deal. He legitimately loves this character, loves this franchise. He's loyal to it. He's loyal to Fox for it. He knows that without this, he wouldn't have a career.
That's awesome.
So I feel like he is, and by all accounts, everyone likes him. He's a legitimately nice guy. And I feel like he'll be a part of this universe as long as he physically can. And again, like, he could come back. We'll see.
I love that suggestion. I would love to see that. I think anybody, the first person who actually pulls that off, down the line is going to be my new hero.
Okay, there you go.
10 years from now.
IROBot_Dave. You're going to see the movie. Afterwards, go home and write your draft of the screenplay for the Old Man Logan. Send it into IGN. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, you didn't win those tickets at home, but we still have more to give away. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. We're also showing exclusive screenshots.
Yep.
Photos, they call them, from the movie.
Photos.
Time for another one. Here it is.
Jim.
That is Harada, better known as Silver Samurai. Now, you'll notice, obviously, not dressed in silver or as a samurai. But
well, there's some problems.
But we're gonna see him in that suit later on. You see it in the trailer and stuff. But again, like the big question, the big mech version of Silver Samurai at the end, who's in that suit?
Right.
I mean, maybe it's not him. I don't know. I mean,
I'd be willing to bet it's him.
They were very coy, I got to say, at the editing bay visit that I did.
When aren't they coy?
Yes.
Here's the entire movie on green screen. We'll put the rest in.
Yeah,
no reason to beat around the bush.
Now, in the comics, he is the half brother of Mariko, and he is vying for control of their crime family. In this movie, we're not quite sure what his agenda is, if he is more of just sort of a loyal henchman, or if he does have his own sort of competing kind of power struggle going on.
It's a power struggle. I kind of think his only agenda.
Dynamite dropping, Chris.
I think his only agenda needs to be, hey, I'm gonna get in this friggin' huge silver suit at some point and slice things up.
I'm good with weapons.
I don't know.
That's all I need.
That's all I would need as Harada.
Ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, we have less than 10 minutes left in this live stream. We're still giving away tickets to the Wolverine. You've heard of it. We've talked about it a few times. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. Here comes a question that didn't win anything. Sorry about that.
Damn.
Should have been a bit better, I guess, but everything.
Cold.
At Casio _ ho-ho, favorite Wolverine story arc of all time, go.
Casio, ho-ho.
Yeah, you like that?
I don't know. This is so cliche. I like this one. I like this one.
I like this one, too.
I like Days of Future Past, and I like the X-Men stuff with the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
There's a famous shot of Wolverine kind of, and now you see it in everything, but he was hidden up in the rafters, ninja style,
right?
And dropping down on people. And that was the first time when I was reading the comics, really seeing how lethal that character was, and there was just something so raw about him. And that's one of my personal favorites. I love to go back through that trade every now and then. Yes, the Miller Claremont Wolverine miniseries that this is based on is awesome. But it's not the only cool Wolverine story that's out there.
No, definitely not. Also, when he squared off against Sabretooth.
Sure. Yeah, the first run down there.
Yeah.
Or just all the other times they fought.
Yeah. First time.
I also love in the old Claremont comics from the 80s, the way he took Kitty Pryde under his wing. The movies have basically done that, but with Rogue.
Right.
Who people will forget, in the comics, Rogue started off as a villain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in those two X-Men comics, the ones with Silver Samurai and Viper that kind of follow the Wolverine miniseries, it's his first time meeting Rogue as part of the team, and he doesn't trust her. And he doesn't understand. But then he's like, all right, any team that'll accept me as a member, I guess they'll take anybody. And so, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see sort of how the movies have borrowed from these comics, but not really literally or faithfully adapted them. I think between The Wolverine and Days of Future Past, we're getting two very classic, relatively contemporary stories that are being adapted for the screen, and we'll see how faithful they end up being.
All right, so before I want to jump into, because I like comics too.
Do it.
Right now, it's a more recent one. I'm a big fan of Wolverine and X-Men. Have you seen this one where it's him and Kitty Pryde running one of the Xavier academies? Like they're both headmasters, or they're splitting the duties. It's a lot of fun. You should all read it.
Is it sort of like an educating Rita kind of
thing?
Yeah,
exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Educating Rita just happened on this.
That's right. The one movie nobody saw coming.
They had the B-roll ready. Bam.
Exactly.
Caitlin's on it in the back.
I was okay with this giant glasses.
I was sitting there with my BAPS reference and I couldn't drop it.
Ladies and gentlemen, about 5 minutes are left in this live stream. We want to give you these tickets. Tweet at IGN, hashtag Wolverinetics. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to give a winner. It didn't say winner, but I'm just doing it because I can do that. Super Jonah 97 says, after the credits of X3, we see Professor X waking up in a hospital. Will they explain that, you think, in Wolverine / Days of Future?
In Days of Future Past, yeah, I believe it. That or they'll ignore it entirely by him just being there.
Hey,
and like,
it's me,
something which it seems to have happened. But what I think is
they're
more,
going to do a lot of that.
What I'm thinking, is more curious is there is that end of Wolverine. There were two little tags at the end. One was Deadpool's severed head.
Right.
And then the other one was Wolverine in a bar in Japan, and he's drinking. The guy's like, "Yeah, drinking to forget." He's like, "I'm drinking to remember," because remember he gets shot in the head and he has amnesia and all that.
Right. An adamantium bullet.
Yes.
As we all know, would erase a brain.
Because, that'll
would,
do
yeah.
it. I'm thinking, when does that happen? If he's never been to Japan before, then is this tag at the end of the events that happened in the Wolverine?
That's my thought.
Are we looking at like a sad ending, which if you've read the comic, you've probably just answered your own question, but it's we'll see what happens. I feel like all I'm saying is we'll see.
Well, that's what it is.
We will see when the Wolverine opens July 26th.
I actually like that.
There you go.
Segue.
I like that. I like that idea. I think that was. I think if they're going to make it work, that's how they make it work.
Not that they knew that when they were putting that scene in.
Well, I don't know. I would give some credit because
would hope
these
they
things
would,
are
right?
because these things are there's a lot of. I think the Tokyo storyline was out there as an idea before that scene was made. So I think by that, I think
Maybe
it's definitely fan service to say, hey, this might be coming.
And maybe it's just an elaborate joke to like the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift thing, where like, what timeline? Oh, how's Han alive in all these movies? Well, you gotta get your Venn
the
diagram.
Wolverine will explain that.
Vin Diesel at the end of the Wolverine rolls
exactly.
up.
unprecedented.
Challenges him.
Vin just shows up.
Okay, so we've done a question there. We gave the stuff out to Super Jonah 97. He wins tickets to the Wolverine. We have one set of tickets to give away left, so tweet at IGN, #Wolverinetics. But that means we also get to see another screenshot here.
Yes, we do.
We have one left after this.
That is Yukio yet again.
Yeah, yet another look. This is her like.
They know
this
what
is
the
her in
people
her
like.
civvies, as they say.
It's casual Yukio.
This actress was in Babel, right? Like that's her
believe so.
previous claim to fame.
I believe so.
I feel like the casting of this whole film was really obviously had to be international, but outside of Jackman. And Famke Janssen, it's a relatively
to Western
unknown
audiences, you
cast
probably
in the
wouldn't
US,
recognize a lot of the actors. Although the fella playing Silver Samurai was on Witchblade, so you would know him.
If you watch Witchblade.
If you watch Witchblade.
Which means you probably don't know. Do you now? You guys. You're mainly you. You don't do anything. Jim, you cover movies for a living. You know all about these movies.
so
Yes.
Do you think the fact that there's not more Western faces in it is going to work against it as far as like being mass appeal or anything?
No, considering most movies now are making their money internationally, and that Asian markets are huge opening markets that a lot of money is coming in from. I think if anything, the Wolverine will probably end up doing better abroad than it will at home. I hope it does well at home, but considering it's not a save the world movie, that there's no portal in the sky opening up with aliens and this particular superhero that I know about. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't get so cocky.
Don't shoot yourself.
We don't know what's in that next suit. For all I know, it'll be a Chitauri in there, and they'll have completely pulled it all
Then
off.
everything comes back together.
Everything back together.
All right, we're down to the final 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
2-minute warning.
At IGN #Wolverinetics. You'll win tickets to the Wolverine. Real quick for people who are just joining us, you give them the rundown. What everything they need to know about the Wolverine right now.
Okay, the Wolverine is set after the events of X-Men: The Last Stand, which was the final X-Men movie. It is Wolverine in Japan. He gets caught up with the Yakuza, with ninjas, with Silver Samurai and Viper, and he might just wound his broken heart.
Okay, that was good. Good job.
Yeah.
What day is it out on?
July 26th.
Clear your schedules, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, here's our final question, our final winner of the tickets. One more screenshot, though, so don't click off when it's not you. Prax_29 says, we know that Phoenix is going to be in the movie there. Will there be any other characters from the original X-Men trilogy in the Wolverine, you think?
You think or you know? You think maybe.
Yeah?
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody pops up, if there's a little cameo of somebody on a screen or something like that. I mean, I'd be curious to see if they bring back even somebody like Professor, that could be a little tag at the end. Professor X and be like, "Wait, I thought you were dead." Everything, and then
Think again?
and then you loop into Days of Future Past, and everything's been reset. But they've been pretty adamant about this. Adamantium. About this being
terrible,
the comments just turned
terrible.
negative. About this being a standalone film. So I don't expect much of that.
Okay. Well, Prax, congratulations. Enjoy the movie on us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have your final screenshot now, or photo as they call them.
This is Viper.
Viper, now she pulls her face off.
She
does.
As a snake.
And she looks different than her comic book character in that she has long blonde hair instead of that kind of short green hair. Jessica Biel was up for this role, and they couldn't make it work. It was supposed to be her.
So now who is this then? I don't know this one.
This is Svetlana Kochenvenko.
Rolls off the tongue.
And just, and I have a difficult last name, and so sorry, Svetlana, but you're a lovely, lovely Viper.
Well, Jim, Chris, thank you so much for talking about Wolverine with me.
Thank you,
This
Greg.
has been a lot of fun. Movie comes out when again?
July 26th.
Ladies and gentlemen.
July 25th, perhaps in some international markets.
Ladies and gentlemen. Shut your face, Jim. Wolverine's coming out soon. I'm sure you're going to have a big old review on it there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Where can people find that?
They can find it at ign.com/movies.
Oh, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, IGN.com will continue to cover everything about the Wolverine, so make sure you keep it right here.